Right boys, now it's pretty late and I was sitting there thinking to myself, Jeff, your video has been a bit weird recently, you've just been uploading content of you in the gym, not talking at all. That's not really me boys. So what I wanted to do is record another one of these bicycle videos whereby I can walk you through a little something to do with fitness, perhaps something you didn't already know about. And for me, it's an opportunity to speak a little bit more with you guys one-on-one, share some of my ideas around particular fitness topics, fitness products, these types of things. Last video, I believe I did weightlifting belts. And today's video, I'm going to be doing Fat Gripz. Now, Fat Gripz you may or may not already know about. If you don't, I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough of what they are. I'm also then going to go on to explain, let me refer to my notes here, why you should use them and when you should use them. And then I'm going to conclude with a recommendation. So just something that I personally think about Fat Gripz. Now, of course, I'm referring to my notes here, boys, okay? As always, I like to make sure you guys are getting all of my thoughts, not just some thoughts that I have in that particular moment, but rather my full opinion on a subject matter. And this subject matter is Fat Gripz, and I'm going to be giving you my opinion on them, okay? So let's begin with what are Fat Gripz. Now, Fat Gripz are essentially, let me just wrap this off. In fact, they're very good quality. So, Fat Gripz are essentially these little things here. They wrap around the barbell. So if you've got your barbell here, the Fat Grip wrap, oh, a bit of sex education as well. The Fat Grip wraps around the barbell and it increases the diameter of the barbell. So rather than you just gripping the barbell as it were, you're now going to be gripping the full Fat Grip. All my barbells are back at my home gym now, so they're not in the apartment, unfortunately, boys. I can't demonstrate it, but you can understand the idea. Rather than gripping a quite thin bar, you are now gripping something in your hands. I've got pretty big hands, and I'm telling you, if I even try and wrap my hands all the way around, these are the fattest Fat Grips they have, and I can't even connect my fingers. That's essentially what they are. They transform a regular Olympic barbell into a thick barbell. Now it was called a thick bar. A thick bar is quite an old-fashioned type of bar. It's something that was quite popular in strongman training. I mean, nowadays it still is quite popular. I'm thinking back to when I used to train at a bodybuilding gym. They had some strongman equipment and they had nice thick bars there too. Quite some, yeah. I was going to say similar to a bamboo bar, but I guess a bamboo bar is just a variation of a thick bar, really. More so than the thick bar being a variation of the bamboo bar. Yeah, so that's essentially what it is. Now, why do you use Fat Gripz? Now, I've got some quotes here from the website of Fat Gripz, and I'm going to essentially walk you through whether I think they're true, not true, whether I recommend them, okay? So, the number one reason why you should use Fat Gripz is to boost grip strength. This is a direct quote from the website. Do I believe this happens? Yes. Yes, if you're using Fat Gripz, I genuinely believe that it does improve your grip strength. I've used them, I've trained with and without them, and I can absolutely 100% say that when I'm using Fat Gripz, I feel my grip directly being worked. Sometimes, let me use an example with the deadlift. Sometimes when I'm doing deadlifts, I can pull the bar, I'll feel it on my glutes, my hamstrings, my lower back, my lats, sometimes maybe even on my forearms, but very, very rarely on my forearms. If I do a session of deadlifting and I'm using Fat Gripz, all of a sudden I'm feeling it on this part of my forearm here, I'm feeling it on this part of the forearm here, quite close to the wrist, and I'm feeling it on each of the tendons that run through my fingers. It really works, boys. I really feel the recruitment of those muscle groups that you just don't get when you're using a regular barbell, if that makes sense. Now, it makes sense that you would experience this because you're having to actually grip a bar. You can no longer just wrap your fingers around the bar as such or use your thumb to hook, but rather you have to actually hold the weight. Essentially, you're recruiting muscle groups that you don't normally use. That's the logic behind it, and it does definitely work to boost your grip strength. In my own personal experience, okay? I don't know what science says, but I can attest to that. It does boost your grip strength. Now, with regards to increased muscle activation, this is the second reason why Fat Gripz say you should use their product. Yeah, I think it does. I think it does increase muscle activation. The logic being that when you're gripping something thicker, you're having to use more muscles. I just gave you the perfect example of the deadlift. I'm no longer just working my glutes, my lower back, my lats, but now all of a sudden I'm working the tiny little muscle fibers that wrap around my tendons. I'm working my wrist, I'm working my forearm a whole lot more. That's just for the deadlift. If you were to put this on the bench and you were to start benching with it, I can absolutely guarantee you're going to be working the inner part of this forearm right here, because you're all of a sudden having to actually grip the bar like this. You can't even connect your hands, so you're really, really working that forearm the whole time in a way that you just wouldn't do it if you were using a normal Olympic bar. So again, yes, it does increase muscle activation. Now, to be honest, thinking out loud here, you can't lift as much weight with a fat grip as you can with a normal bar. The logic being that a fat grip is fatter. As you cannot hook your hands around, as you cannot quite squeeze the bar in the same manner because you're all of a sudden recruiting all these new weaker muscle groups, such as the tendons in your hand, you're weaker. You're weaker when you use fat grips. So I understand the logic in that you increase muscle activation, which is their claim on the Fat Gripz website. But I have to put a counter argument forward, and that would be, you do increase muscle activation, but you also decrease muscle activation. Let me explain. With the deadlift again. If you're doing a deadlift with Fat Gripz, you are technically recruiting more muscles. You are activating more muscles because you're activating, as I gave the example, of the forearm. But I've done deadlifts with and without Fat Gripz, and with Fat Gripz I can maybe deadlift 120, 140 kg, if that. So whilst I am recruiting more muscles in my forearm, the muscles in my glutes, in my hamstrings, they aren't quite being worked as much. My lower back, not quite being worked as much because I'm using less weight. So whilst more muscles hypothetically are being recruited, does that lead to greater muscular activation? I would have to argue, no, it does not. And so if you want to use Fat Gripz to increase muscle activation, I would say don't. That's not the purpose I would use them for. If you want to specifically target your grip, sure. If you want to increase muscle activation, that's not why you should buy Fat Gripz. You should carry on using the regular barbell, in my opinion, because you can pull more weight. Okay? Now, I understand the counter argument to even that. The counter argument to my counter argument could be, if you get stronger with Fat Gripz and eventually you can deadlift, let's say, the same with Fat Gripz as you could with a regular barbell, if that's even possible, I don't think it is, but you may argue that it is, then yeah, maybe eventually you will get the same muscular activation, but I don't know, I don't think it's really possible to do so. And so with regards to increased muscle activation, I wouldn't say that's why you should use Fat Gripz. Grip strength, 100%. But if you want to increase your muscle activation, no point, okay? There's really no point. Yeah, to be honest. The third reason why you should use Fat Gripz, as per the website, is that it helps prevent injury. I would agree with this. Thinking back to my own time using Fat Gripz, I remember when I had crippling tendonitis in my forearm, I did every day for around 3 or 4 months a drop set with hammer curls. Every day. No days off. A drop set with hammer curls from 20 kg down to 6 kg, 4 kg, 2 kg. Literally down to absolute muscular failure. And then I came back the next day and did it again. That gave me crippling tendonitis. I ended up taking about 1.5 years off gym as a consequence of this, because I kept going through the tendonitis, and you know how it is, when you push through an injury, eventually you need a lot of time off. So I took a lot of time off, and then when I came back, benching was still painful on my forearm, because you're loading weight on your forearms, it was still painful. I used my Fat Gripz, the pain went away. And my logic, my rationale here, is that I was no longer recruiting just this part of my forearm to hold the bench, but rather because of the Fat Gripz and the increased diameter of the bar, I was now recruiting this part of my forearm instead. Essentially, reducing the load that's being born. Reducing the load that's being born, reducing the load that's on this part of the forearm and instead putting it on this part. So yeah, it could hypothetically help prevent injury, which is the claim on the website. But for me, I personally used it to treat an injury because I could carry on training, because using the Fat Gripz allowed me to recruit different muscles to those normally recruited during normal exercise. So I guess that's true. And the final one is improve functional strength. Now, I've got a bit of a further note here. The rationale that Fat Gripz use, so the company Fat Gripz, used to make this claim is that you are forced to exert more muscular force in order to grip the bar. This results in greater gains in all assistive muscles throughout the kinetic chain. I could understand that argument. It really comes down to how functional we're talking. If you're doing something such as farmer's walks, yes, because you're just holding the weight and you're walking, you are going to become functionally stronger because you're going to develop that country boy, farm boy strength, whereby you're a working man, you're a bricklayer, you're a scaffolder, you have nice, thick hands capable of squeezing, of having a strong grip. That's essentially what these will give you. So functionally, yes, because if your mom asks you to carry the shopping, if you've been training with Fat Gripz, logically thinking, you can carry more shopping. Alright boys, sorry about this cut off and change in direction. Halfway through recording last night, my phone ran out of storage. So only half of the whole conversation was recorded. You just got the first half. That's okay, it's no problem. Yeah. I mean, it got a lot better as it went on as well, so a little bit frustrating, but it's not the end of the world. I was essentially arguing for, if I can bring myself back, I've still got my notes, arguing for Fat Gripz not being used to improve functional strength, because logically thinking, you could just carry more weight. And in moving more weight, you're going to become literally stronger. And I believe that through literal strength, you will gain more functional strength versus just being able to hold more things. And again, I understand the logic, you know, I understand that functionally you may be able to actually pick things and move them. But I'm also sure that if you can just deadlift, bench press and squat more weight, then you're going to be stronger than if you just have a strong grip. Logically thinking, for me at least. Sorry, it's early morning here, so yeah. When you should use fat grips, this is going to be the next part of the video. Jeez, I can't believe none of this was recorded. The next part of the video was when you should use fat grips. Now, fat grips, boys, you don't want to use them for heavy lifting. If you're going for 1 reps, 2 reps, 3 reps, 4 reps, 5 reps, don't use fat grips, okay? You mainly want to use this for more than 6 repetitions, as the extra muscular exertion may result in an increased risk of injury. Now, what do I mean here? If you're doing, let me use bent over rows as an example. If you're doing bent over rows, okay, you can normally get out 80 kilograms for 10 reps. You know, pretty standard weight, 80 kilograms, 10 reps, feels good. You put these on, you won't be able to do 10 reps. I can just promise. You can maybe do 7 reps. Okay? In that particular instance, it should be okay to keep going, okay? Because you're doing a lot of repetitions of the weight. If you're going for a 1 rep max on your bent over row, and you're going to go for 120, 130 kg, 1 rep bent over row, and you put this on, your grip is so weak and you're going to struggle to move the bar so much, you're probably going to arch your back. And if you start trying to row with an arched back, I mean, I'm talking about a negative arch, not a positive, you're going to injure yourself, okay? You will injure yourself doing this. I can pretty much guarantee. The reason why I wouldn't recommend this for heavy lifting is that you are going to break down your form a little bit when you're using these. And now, Fat Gripz may say, but like the company, they may say, oh, but if you're breaking down your form, just move less weight. If you're moving less weight, you're going to stimulate the muscle less. You won't make the same amount of gains. So, at what point is the trade-off for having a fatter grip and stronger grip? At what point is that trade-off worth losing gains overall? You know, because you may say, Jeff, but let me use this argument. Jeff, I want to get a big, thick, strong back, and then also I want to get big, thick, strong forearms. So what I'm going to do, this is what Fat Gripz would say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the weight down, so I just use my 80 kilograms that I can do 10 reps with, and I'm just going to get 6 or 7 reps with the Fat Gripz, okay? That may be what you decide to do. Fine. But I would say you would see far greater gains going for the 100 kg, 110, 120 kg bent over row for a couple, maybe 3 reps, and then going on to doing specific forearm exercises with the Fat Gripz. That's what I personally would do, because then you're not going to be losing out on the gains made from moving heavy weight with your back, but you'll also be targeting your forearms in a more precise manner. That just makes sense to me, okay? I don't know what you guys might prefer. Just because personally your grip, I believe your grip is going to be too weak in order to move an appropriate amount of muscle to simulate the targeted area. No, that being said, using Fat Gripz does definitely change the way in which you contract your muscles. For example, if you are doing bent over rows, you'll probably find greater exertion of your lats. Of your traps. The rationale being that you need to stabilize yourself a bit more. You need to actually because you can't lock your hands around the bar, you're going to be twisting your hand in a bit more, and just doing that in that position activates your lats. Traps. It's early morning, boys, okay? It's early morning, so I just woke up, had my shower and whatnot. I looked and thought, oh, I'll do a bit of video editing, and I saw it was only half recorded. So here I am. So, yeah, don't use them for heavy lifting. You also, this is something else Fat Gripz say. Fat Gripz say that you could use these to replace repetitive forearm exercises. I'm going to recommend, boys, don't do that. Do not use Fat Gripz if you want to replace repetitive forearm exercises. Now, the logic here is that Fat Gripz are saying you replace repetitive forearm exercises, such as hammer curls, with Fat Gripz. And in doing so, you are going to prevent injury. I understand the logic as somebody who's been injured because of repetitive forearm exercises, okay? Now that being said, I made such huge otherworldly gains doing that versus doing this, okay? I've tried using these for about a month with every lift before. I didn't really notice too much gains. Eventually my hands stopped hurting. My grip was definitely stronger. My grip was 100, I could pull 180 kg using double overhand. The only time I've ever been able to do it is when I was training every day with these. So yes, it does make a difference, and I'm not trying to dispute that with regards to grip strength. But does it make you overall stronger, functionally stronger, stronger with regards to every other aspect of your body aside from your grip? No. Okay? Would I recommend, as Fat Gripz do, that you use these versus doing repetitive forearm exercises? No. I think if you want big, thick forearms and you want to buy these to get big, thick forearms, you are wasting your time, wasting your money. You'd be far better going to the park and doing a fuckload of pull-ups and chin-ups. Do that. I promise you'll see some tremendous forearm gains. If you go there once every 2 days and you do 50 pull-ups. Your forearms will get huge doing that versus squeezing these onto a bench and benching with them, taking them off, do some flies with Fat Gripz and taking it off, and then going over to the chest press and going up to the chest press. And then I'm going to take that off and I'm going to put it on a decline. Why? Why would you do that when you know, boys, that you could just go do some pull-ups? You want thick forearms? Go do some reverse curls, some hammer curls. Even pick the bar up, put the bar down, pick the bar up, put the bar down. I do that all the time, okay? And that is when I would use Fat Gripz, by the way, but I'll talk about that in a minute. The final time Fat Gripz say you should use them is the final reason Fat Gripz say you should use them is that thicker bars distribute the weight more evenly throughout the hand and therefore recruits more muscle fibers from the wrists, fingers and forearms, therefore reducing the repetitive strain injury that can occur from consistently bearing load in the same location. I'm paraphrasing there when I say that, but that's pretty much one of the arguments that was said on the Fat Gripz website. I've been lifting on and off for years now, boys, okay? Sometimes I've taken 2 years off, a year off. I've never had a repetitive strain injury from bearing loads. Never happened. Bench pressing, I've done months where I only bench press. I've done months where I only deadlift, months where I only squat. You've seen on this channel examples of that in smaller portions when I'm just squatting for a week and a half. When I'm just deadlifting for a week and a half. I make tremendous gains. Never have I gotten injured just by bearing load. It makes no sense. I mean, I understand what they're saying. They're saying that let's use the shoulder press. If you're shoulder pressing with your wrists like this every day, eventually your wrists are going to get hurt. So therefore, you should use the Fat Gripz and shoulder press like that instead. I understand the logic, and even, let me make a point right now, even just twisting your hands like that, I'm feeling more activation in my shoulders immediately. But is that really going to grow your shoulders? Think about it. Because now, all of a sudden, yes, I'm feeling more activation in my shoulders, but the weight is so much lighter. Am I going to make any gains? I would say not. Now, you may say, Jeff, if you train with these every day, eventually you'll get stronger using these. Maybe. Okay, maybe. I've never seen some massive monster rocking up with Fat Gripz and going, yeah, let me set my Fat Gripz up for this shoulder press. Let me set my Fat Gripz up for this particular exercise. It doesn't happen, okay? What the big guys do, and I see them doing, they walk up to the bar, they say, I'm gonna fucking pull this weight, and they pull this weight, or they push this weight, okay? Now, I have seen big guys use Fat Gripz, but never for every exercise, only for very specific circumstances. And so, the one time, maybe I'll go with 2 times actually, but the one main time that I would recommend you use Fat Gripz is when you are training till muscular failure. Muscular failure as a finishing movement for the session, that is when you should use Fat Gripz. Let me give you an example. Here is a back day. Deadlifts, bent over rows, arms. Okay, pretty typical pull day. You've done your deadlifts, you've done your bent over rows, not using Fat Gripz, and you've got a huge back pump. You've pulled some insane numbers, you're feeling very good, okay? Now you say to yourself, I have 20 minutes left in the session, 10 minutes left in the session. How can I grow my forearms and my biceps in a sustainable manner here, okay? Now is the time for these to really come in handy. You whack these on an Olympic bar or on an easy curl bar, and you either rep out thousands of just intense, grueling repetitions with a low weight, and you feel every tendon in your whole forearm light up like a Christmas tree, because these will do that for you. These will make your arm melt, okay? If you are doing high repetitions. Again, heavy weight, fucking pointless. Don't do it. High repetitions with the Fat Gripz, you will literally feel like a Christmas tree, okay? You will be lit up, and it's a good feeling. So, do it on the finishing movement of the session. That's what I'm saying. That's when you should use them. You also could potentially use them if you are already suffering from a pre-existing injury and you decide, you know what? I don't want to continue to aggravate this particular muscle. What I'm going to do instead is use the Fat Gripz to activate a different muscle, okay? Or to recruit another particular muscle area in order to alleviate the pain from this one muscle area. Let me explain. When I was benching and I had tendonitis, this part of my forearm was being activated so much just because of the way you hold the bench, okay? Then, put a Fat Grip in. You can't have your hands kind of like this anymore, so you have to put your hands like this in order to grip the bar. You then thicken up this part of your forearm instead because you were recruiting this part of your forearm more. Therefore, alleviating the pain of the tendonitis here allowed me to train through tendonitis. Just an example, okay? They have got their place, boys, okay? And that place is for preventing or alleviating injury when necessary, or for finishing off a session when you're going into a failure or with an extremely high rep range. Not for heavy deadlifts, boys. Don't ever do that. I mean, I think I've seen Eric Bugenhagen do heavy deadlifts, but his heavy deadlifts with Fat Gripz were like 500 pounds or 600 pounds, maybe even more. But his heavy deadlift normally is like 800 or something. So it's like, again, if he was doing Fat Gripz every day, would he really become that much stronger? Maybe. Or would he become a little bit smaller because of the less weight he's moving? Just thinking out loud here. Ultimately, boys, I'm now going to give you my recommendation because I've gone over what are Fat Gripz, why you should use them, and then I've just finished discussing when you should use them. So now my recommendation. I recommend that you give them a go. All right, there's literally no harm in just trying, seeing if it works for you. As I said, in particular circumstances, they are very, very useful, and I think you will find them to be very useful. A good tool, a good accessory, but that's all they are, they're an accessory. Just in the same way that you don't use a lifting belt with every lift, or lifting straps with every lift, you don't need to use these with every lift. They're an accessory to be used as and when necessary, and I think your boys will like them because they do definitely target weaker muscles. They do enhance your grip strength, but the weight will become a lot lighter when you're using these, which may result in you making less gains initially if you start using them for every exercise. Or if you take my advice on board, be prepared to only use these when you're going with the high rep ranges or until muscular failure using a drop set. But ultimately, boys, what it really comes down to is that variety is the spice of life. Okay? If you want to keep your training fresh, you want to keep ensuring that all your muscles are targeted, I don't see any harm in buying them. They definitely do make a difference. Even just squeezing them now, I can feel it on my forearms, especially on the inside of your forearm. They're a good piece of kit, ultimately. They do have a place in the gym, just as a thick bar obviously has a place in the gym, but you wouldn't do every exercise with a thick bar. You shouldn't do every exercise with Fat Gripz, okay? And that is my recommendation. So, thank you very much for watching, boys. Sorry that we had that cut off in the middle. Bit annoyed that it cut off on the second half. I'd have preferred to have had the first half cut off because the second half of that content recorded yesterday was really good, but that's right. I'll see you all tomorrow, boys. As I said, bit of a break from the normal stuff because I'm nowadays just recording in the gym. That's not permanent, that's just something, bear with me for another couple of months until I move back to the UK, and then once I'm back in the UK, I'll set my home gym up again. Maybe in my bedroom this time, so I can wake up, lift weights, get out the door. Maybe that'll be how I do it. We'll see though. Alright, we'll see. It'll be good, whatever I'm doing. But yeah, just bear with me in the meantime, boys, and hopefully we can start having some more of these conversational videos once I return. Okay? Thank you very much for watching, boys. I'll see you all tomorrow. Hasta mañana, mis gringos. Adios.